Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show, we're talking about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and/or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm gonna talk about It. Welcome to Derry, Season 1, Episode 6. Great episode. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So, there's a lot. We have that opening where we had that little girl, Mabel, and she has that nurse with her, and the nurse is dragging her downstairs about like, oh, there's no clown down here. And then they see the red balloon, and she's like, no, it's just a red balloon. And then Pennywise pops up because, someone was discussing this like maybe last week about like kind of the preview of this episode, maybe giving you hints to like Pennywise's history. And obviously this ties into something that was touched on, not fully explored, but it's dabbled and kind of shown in It Chapter 2, but it's made you to believe like, oh, it's got to be complete and utter BS because the whole sequence ended up just being Pennywise messing with Beverly. But now we find out there was truth to it, but it's like, that's the thing about, messing with someone, like that's the best fiction is when you sprinkle in elements of truth to really kind of bring it home, to bring the realism to it. But I'll get to that later. But it's interesting. First of all, let's start off with Lily. Poor Lily, because obviously I think it's so interesting too that like she's so possessive of like the dagger because they're like, oh, I think it was Will. It's like, oh, let me see that. And she's like, no, it's mine. And it's like you can look at it, but you won't. I think it's so interesting where I'm like, she's getting a little possessive of it. Understandable. It was the one thing that kept you from death, and I think especially because she's at the end of her rope, because she's probably thinking, as long as I have this, Pennywise can't get me. So like, it's never leaving my side because she got tricked by the Maddie of it all before, and it's like, I'm not gonna like, even if I get tricked, I'll be fine because even you try to trick me, I'll still have this, and you won't be able to get to me. I've seen it. And so it leads into this larger debate about, she's under the impression like, well, we should go and kill it, as long as we're together and we have this. Obviously, it's afraid of it. We can go kill it. But it's like, well, people haven't always had success with trying to kill Pennywise in the past with it. Also, we know what the future holds. That's the sad thing about this being a prequel. We know you guys don't succeed. Hell, the Loser Club doesn't succeed until 15 or 16 is when Chapter 2 takes place. It came out in 2019, but like it's set in like 2015 or 2016. So like, yeah, like we know that we still got what is that? 54, if my math's correct, which it could horrendously not be, but 54 years of Pennywise still being around. Obviously he takes breaks in between that. It's like he doesn't go, full kill for those 27 years, but you get what I'm saying before he takes like another 27-year break. But that's still 54 years that Pennywise is still there, just recuperating and just waiting for his opportunity to strike, whenever those 27-year intervals come up. So that's just the sad reality of it. And I can understand both sides of it, of where Lily's like, I want to end this, whereas Ronnie's like, no, we all went down there, we almost died, you're the one that convinced us, you're the one that got tricked by Maddie. But it's like, we all made that decision. Yes, she led the charge, but because what Lily was saying, it's understandable because from her perspective, it's like, for one, Ronnie, you didn't see what I saw. I saw everyone. I saw Phil. I saw Teddy. I saw Susie. You saw a little bit of the aftermath. You saw Teddy like get flung to her, but you didn't get to see the horrors that I did. I was neck deep in there and I crawled out and I survived. You don't understand that. So when Maddie came to me being like, Phil's still alive, I was desperate to try and save him. Because she also thought, hey, if Phil's alive and, with this, we can prove that your dad didn't do it. So like she thought it checked all the boxes. She was so desperate, that survivor's guilt too. Of like, I thought I was doing the right thing. I didn't think I was just leading us to our deaths. And it's just... But you also understand where Ronnie's coming from, because it's like, you want to go back down there. We barely got out of there before. You want to go that, like, you want to make that decision again. Obviously, you don't have the best track record and stuff like that. So, and, you almost led us to our death before. So you're definitely going to end up leading us to our death now. So Ronnie has a lot of points. They are not prepared for this fight, even if they have the dagger, because they're also going into this half-cocked. It's like, sure, the dagger works the way it is, but like, there's so much you don't know about it. And all of this, we as the audience know, Rose's people know, but outside of that, like, her people are the only ones who know, at least, and even they don't fully understand everything, so... But obviously, it's just Lily's driven by a lot of, like I said, survivor's remorse and guilt about everything. Because she, as Ronnie puts it, it's like you're the reason why. You're the one that gathered everyone, ended up taking us. But it's it's like even if she hadn't, like Pennywise would have come for you all at some point in time. Your kids in Derry. There's a very good chance, like even if this had all gathering hadn't happened, you would have been like it would have happened one way or another. Like you would have been neck deep in the Pennywise of it all. And Ronnie and Lily sadly doing the whole thing of I wish I had never went to your house. It's like, well, I wish you had never left Juniper Hills. And it's like both of them saying something they didn't mean. But even Rich is like, yo, don't do this. This is exactly what that thing wants. It wants us to tear each other apart. And it's like, yeah, we saw the exact same thing happen with the Losers Club. It's like what Pennywise is. It's like when they're together, they're stronger. They have each other's back. But it's like you need to rip them apart to kind of make them even more afraid. Because at least if they have each other, they can bolster each other and not be as afraid. But it's like, nah, like you want them as scattered and at each other's throat as much as possible. So, I mean, I skipped over it, but like Will having that whole thing between him and his dad like blaming him for the whole Polly thing, which I'm like, once again, there is a little bit of that, but it's also like, yo, like, what did you expect me to do? My friends were in danger. They needed me. And it's like, you taught me that it's my place to not run away from trouble. And this is me running towards it to help protect my friends. And he's like, well, you're not me. He's like, yeah, of course I'm not. I would never let my friend die. And then immediately get slapped. I was like, Jesus. And even that line from Will where he's like, oh my God, he's already in your head. Like, this is my dad would never do that. You're not my dad. Like, this is that thing get inside of your head. I need to get away from you. And obviously, like, with everything going on, you just buried your best friend. Like, he stopped you from killing your son and some innocent children. Like, of course, like, all of this is, like, pounding away at Leroy's head. And it's just, it's a lot. Does not excuse it, but it's just a thing of understanding it. And the sad thing is, that line that Will said to his dad will definitely come back to haunt him. I won't let my friends die. You're just like, oh, there's a death flag. Oh, there's quite a few death flags. You're like, ooh, let's plant this flag here, this one here, here. So we'll circle back to that line and see if Will is able to keep his friends safe. Because, like, there's only, like, potentially two characters we do know for a fact will make it out of this, and that will be Will and potentially Ronnie. Outside of that, anyone else is free game for what we know. Well, and Dick Halloran, of course. Oh yeah, and Leroy. But like even Charlotte could be on the chopping block, and any of the kids can catch uh death. I don't know why I had to phrase it like that, but end up dying. So you have Halloran going through it. He's trying to numb himself with alcohol. He's still seeing stuff and it's bothering him. And so obviously the guys at the black spot break it to him about Charlotte made the unilateral decision, but the guys at the black spot agreed, was like, hey, we're gonna hide Hank here. You're like, oh boy, he is enemy number one. They're literally getting the good old boys are all gathering up to hunt him down. Wanted posters, like people just out in the streets, locked and loaded, hunting parties full of white people ready to gun him down like he's some kind of animal. Because in their eyes, he is. I mean, obviously being black and being accused of the things he did, like it's just gonna like rev that up. Once again, it's like it's Pennywise just doing everything he can to put a battery in everyone's back to rev them up for this like big like climactic like pop off, as the cycle comes to an end. And so you can understand where Holleran's coming from, where it's like I'm dealing with all the shit I'm dealing with, and you happen to let that lady convince you to let him stay here. It's like I don't want to have to deal with that. But then it's like Charlotte ended up bringing Ronnie there, and Holleran's almost like, oh Jesus, don't bring the kid here to like make me feel worse and bad about it. It's like, he's a loving father, he loves his daughter. It's just like twisting the knife. He's just like, I don't want to get involved. And obviously it causes some feelings for Will, because it's like obviously seeing that relationship, it's like him and his dad have flown so far apart, not even just over the course of the show. It just, his dad was away and they lost touch, and Will grew up so much while his father wasn't around. And, you know, even his mom's like, do you want to talk about this more? And he's like, no, it's just, but it's like, it's weighing on his mind where it's just like, should I make things right with my dad? Because it's like, considering like Ronnie, like, you know, her dad never wants to let her go again. It's like, you're gonna stay right here beside me because I want to always know where you are because I need to. It's my, and just, you know, it's like, you can also understand why your dad was doing what you're doing. It's like, obviously he was angry, he was going through a lot, so Will's understanding that, and but it's just kind of that thing of, he's probably going to wait too long to like potentially talk to his dad about it. And staying on Leroy, we do have him sitting down with Hollering and explaining it. This is something I was listening to a discussion. This is some stuff that was from, like, I think specifically Doctor Sleep. That's someone who's more familiar with that. I don't know if they've read the book or whether they've just seen the movie, but they were talking about the lockbox stuff being maybe I think it's more of a Doctor Sleep than it is a Shining. The Shining, I think it's more Doctor Sleep than is the Shining thing. The whole like locking stuff away, like what you see, it's almost like I guess for those who have the Shine, it's meant to be like a Pandora's box. You put everything in it because it's like ever since he was a kid, because the Shine is stronger in him than it is his grandmother, and she knew from a very young age all the stuff that he's seen, and so she's like, yo, put it all in a box. And he's like, at 9 years old, I clamped it down and I've kept it shut ever since, until that thing went and popped the lid open last episode. And it's like, yeah, he's seeing ghosts. He specifically sees ghosts like in the areas where they died. Obviously he saw Paulie last episode, and then that's kind of like, I think the larger conversation, knowing like that's a really sad thing, knowing like, oh yeah, spirits are just walking here bound to the places they died. And I'm sure even more so with there's so much death riddled throughout Derry, that probably like your box being open and like you crack that, like it's already wide open, and it's like, if you don't like really keep your shit locked down, like now that that's wide open, you were probably going to drown in the voices. And that's what he's worried about, because he's like, if I don't pay them any mind, if I don't interact with them, they won't interact with me, because he's like, they will tell me things that the living should just never know about. And he's like, once you break that dam of the voices, I'm afraid I'll never be able to shut them out. And then Leroy tells him, but like, we need you to, because we need to find these pillars, because Leroy's still coming at this from the perspective of a soldier. Because I think there's a little bit of like, yes, I'm protecting my family, because in his mind, it's like, I'm doing both. I'm locking this thing down and giving it to the government. And what Shaw said to him, I'm like, oh yeah, the soldiers, the friends, the brothers he lost in war, how many of those deaths could have been mitigated or completely like null and void? But it's like, with this thing, so you're capturing this thing, and while it's captured, it can do some good for the world while also ensuring that your son's okay. But like, I think Leroy is not the best with his feelings. He's a stern military man, and I think it's just that all he's focused on is saving the country, which comes in conflict with Charlotte, because Charlotte like talks to him. She's like, I can't be around a man who like lays hands on my son like that. He's like, I'm sorry, I just wasn't in my right head. The poly over there, and she's hugging him. It's like, it's okay. He's like, yeah, I just got to find a way to save this country. And for her, it's like, there you go again, because. And then obviously we know that has been a big conflict for Charlotte, who fights for their people in a country that hates them, and you are here fighting for said country, and like you're kind of being this, not poster child, but you're a cog in the machine of this country that puts us down and treats us lesser than, white folks. So that's always been a point of contention in a relationship, and this is just like, this whole thing is just the powder keg of it all, because it's like, yeah, you brought us here. He's like, I didn't know about it. It's like, sure, but the moment you found out, you didn't have to just move them on base. You could have left, but he is a soldier. You follow orders that you do, even if you don't fully agree with him. But I think he does agree with him, because he thinks it's for the betterment of the world, it's for the betterment of this country, and it's also at the same time protecting his family too. So I can see both sides of it, but I do think he doesn't realize how much the soldier, like, being his reasoning, he doesn't understand like how much that comes off and why that irks Charlotte's nerves. So for her, it's like, I'm going to help out with the Hank situation, especially, and Leroy's very dismissive of it, not knowing like Hank is a cog in all of this too. He is one of the major dominoes that set forth the climactic, bloody conclusion that is this cycle of Pennywises. But it's like Charlotte's doing what she's always doing, like trying to fight for their people, trying to, help people who don't have a fair shake. And, it's like, I'm doing that while you're also like fighting for this country that's so willing to hunt down an innocent man and not even hear his side of the story because all they see is a black man and they're willing and are completely okay with railroading him and believing the worst of him. For Charlotte, it's like the moment I help Hank escape, which you're like, he's definitely not getting out of here. But the moment I help him escape, me and Will, we're leaving, and then you can come meet up with us, because for her, it's like, it's not even about you and me. It's about you making up with your son. That's the relationship that needs. For her, it's like, where we stand, who knows? But it's like, at the very least, your son deserves you to be in his life, and you got to make an effort to fix all of that, so. It's kind of saying on Leroy and his dedication to this fight that he's forcing Halloran's hands because he's saying like, you're a soldier, so when the time comes you got to nut up. But like Halloran's like, you don't understand what I've been through. It's so easy to talk about it on the other side, not knowing what I've been through. I'm telling you I don't want to do this, but you're telling me it's to follow orders. It's like the only reason why this is happening because we didn't leave this damn thing alone, and now it pried open my box, and now it's like got free reign in my head to kind of mess with me and kind of torture me and get its jolly offs for it. Shifting gears, there's the whole Marge and Rich of it all, which I think is actually really adorable. I do think it's kind of sweet. We're kind of like doing the pairings like the Will and Ronnie, the Rich and Marge. Obviously, it's like we've known for a while he's like super been into her, but I love like obviously she was changing her like bandages on her eye, and he offered to do it for her, and I thought it was this really neat moment of her, like when he does it, and he does the whole saliva thing. She's like, "Ew, you're spitting." He's like, "Oh, it's like anti, like something kind of almost like like anti." He was saying something like, "Oh, you don't have to worry about it." But she's like, "I don't think that's the case." I say, "Who knows? Science is changing all the time." Like Will says that all the time, and so it's to help the bandage get taken off. And he sees her eye, and she's like, "Oh, it's gross." And he's like, "Nah, man, he's like, it's like the coolest thing I've ever seen." And I think for Marge, who's always kind of been very self-conscious about her appearance, that means the world to her to hear that and see like, oh, he isn't lying. He isn't just saying that for my sake. He actually means it. And it's kind of almost like, oh, I kind of got this cool battle scar. And she kind of takes care of her eye a little bit. And he ends up putting the bandage over it. And I think it's really sweet later on. He found a eye patch for her and he gave it to her. It's like, oh, yeah, like a knight and a pirate. And it's like, oh, we already got our Halloween costumes planned. She's like, it's a date. He's like, oh. She's like, I didn't mean it. He's like, no, I didn't think you meant it like that. You're like, oh. Also, I'm so curious to see if there ends up being more of that plane thing, or like Rich keeps trying to throw it, like he tries to make it hit like downtown or something. I feel like that's got to be like the last shot of the season or something. Like either Rich is still around to do it, or someone else does it in honor of Rich because he's not around anymore. But it feels, I mean, obviously this one ends up flowing into the sewer, so you're like, oh boy. But we also have Marge standing up for, because obviously the patty cakes come over and they're just like, oh, you should sit with us and not these freaks or whatever. It's like, oh, Lily did that to you. And she's like, no, that's not what happened. It's like, oh, then you should tell us what happened. And she was just, Marge decided like, no, I am a freak, and kind of scares the patty cakes off with her eye. And one was like kind of choking, hyperventilating, and threw something up. It's like, yeah, good on you, Marge, standing with your buddies, and just kind of be like, yeah, I am one of the freaks. Kind of like, I guess they're the freaks versus like, the loser club. Like, I guess maybe that's kind of the case in this regard, but kind of staying on the romantic angle of things. There's the Will and Ronnie, because they're trying to convince Ronnie like, yo, we need to be in this together to deal with this thing. And Will tries to talk to her, and her dad's there, and he's like, oh, you're the young man and it's like, she's like, Dad. He's like, come on, honey, like this the new young gentleman in your life. What's your favorite type of movie? And I forgot what movie it was he ended up referencing. It wasn't like The Great Escape or something, was it? it was a movie that once again, I'm not a movie buff, but I was like, it sounded familiar, and I can't remember off the top of my head what the movie was that he said. Um, Either way, Hank is kind of like, right, you're a good kid, and if anything happens to me, I'm glad to know my Ronnie's taken care of by someone like you. But he's like, hey, nothing's going to happen to you or Ronnie while I'm around. Where you're like, okay, death flag definitely on Hank, but also once again, if they are, which it seems pretty clearly that at the very least, Will is definitely Mike's dad. Whether Ronnie is his Mike's mom, still unclear. But if she is, we know what their story sadly is and how it ends. So you have Lily trying to go to school, trying to keep as cool and calm as collected, but also like what Pennywise said to her last episode, blaming her for like, oh, you got your friend deaf. So like all the stuff Ronnie said is just reinforcing the stuff Pennywise was saying, and that's just making Lily feel more and more guilt. And he comes to her, and she's just gonna look more crazy in front of the school. So she decides, I'm just gonna leave, and she turns to the only person she believes she can turn to, and that's Ingrid Kirsch. Which also, I didn't realize, I didn't put it together even when we saw him last episode. We had met her husband previously. I thought that was our first time meeting him. I forgot. Charlotte met him in episode 2. He's the butcher. I completely did not, like, that didn't even correlate in my head that, that was her husband. I totally didn't even catch that until I was looking at the end of the episode and it referenced, like, his name and the butcher. And I was like, oh, right. I didn't even correlate that was the same character. Either way, she went to the one person she thought she could turn to, and I was like, I thought she might, like, we can see her husband's abusive and just not the greatest guy. So I thought, like, okay, are we going to find her in a very sadly, like, compromised position, like, through, like, after some, like, domestic abuse or something? Like, that's what I was kind of scared of. And then Lily saw the photograph book and start going through it, some happy memories, until you get further and further back and you see photos of her dad, and it's Pennywise, and you're like, oh, well, the real Pennywise, the guy that, the entity took Pennywise from. I was like, oh, I was like, wait. I was like, so the old lady that Beverly encounters, which includes this whole section of It Chapter 2, I was like, oh, Madeline Stowe's character of Ingrid, or Periwinkle, was her, like, name. Maybe it was just like Perry was like her name when she was younger, or maybe it was Periwinkle, but she eventually changed her name to Ingrid, whatever the case may be. She's the old lady from It Chapter 2. But the thing is, once again, that whole sequence was just to mess with Beverly because none of that was real. But it is based on reality. It's just Pennywise took some truth and spun it just to, like, screw with, you take what you know. Considering, like, hey, this thing decided, like, hey, my go-to form is this clown. Like, hey, I grabbed this clown, like, decades and decades ago, but it became the easiest way to attract children. So, yeah, it's kind of become my default. Um, but upon seeing that, like, she's nervous and scared, and then she's talking to Ingrid, and it's just kind of like, oh, like, you went into the sewers, are you okay? And it's like, oh, you saw him, didn't you? And she's like, and then she tells her, like, my dad was a performer in the circus. He was Pennywise the clown. Basically, she knows this thing grabbed her dad all those years ago. Now, whether that was her in the female clown outfit back in 1908, that might have been someone that, like, was there, and that kind of inspired her to eventually, like, take that up herself, because she decided to stay in Derry after her father disappeared, and basically she's been trying to find that thing ever since. And then what we saw at the beginning, the nurse that's there is the young Ingrid, and that little girl Mabel. It's like, oh, she heard about Pennywise the clown, and she wants to try to use Mabel as unintentional bait to draw her father out. And so Pennywise shows up trying to give the balloon to Mabel, and then Ingrid's like, Papa, and he's looking at her like, ooh, like, almost kind of like, oh, that's who you are. Oh, you're his daughter. Like, oh, but also like, oh, like, look how stupid you are. And they proceed to run, and poor Mabel got left behind, and Ingrid had to watch. Very reminiscent of Chapter 2, where Bill has to watch that kid get murdered in front of him in the House of Mirrors sequence. So it was very reminiscent of that. And Pennywise just creeping over slowly, just doing his little like step to, and then gobbles her up, and the blood, obviously the beautiful, oh god, what, I don't know the proper terminology for it, but the juxtaposition is right, but I'm sure there is a more artistic uh, term for it. But like it being black and white, the sepia and the red, I'm like, oh god, that's like, and that red is so like dark and like distinct on the black and white, and all of a sudden like Ingrid hears the circus music and looks up and is like, oh, my little pumpkin, it's me. You just have to open the door. And the moment she does, I can only, and she sees some lights, and I was like, are those the dead lights? And so for her, she's like, right, like she's been doing everything she can to get her father and see him, because she thinks like the only time her father is able to kind of break free is when she feeds the beast. And then like she was looking at a kid being strapped down. I was like, have you been feeding kids to this thing all these years? And I was like, how could you, because she's so deluded, like she's kind of stuck in this arrested development stage of just like, she's still that little girl looking for her dad, and she's never been able to properly grow up, and like Pennywise is taking advantage of that, and she thinks like, oh, if I feed him enough, like I can get a little bit of my father back, and maybe I can pull my dad out of this finally and break him free, even after all this time. I mean, to be fair, it's not like this would be the first person. Like, she's kind of like the predecessor to Henry, Pennywise using his hatred for his father and the evil that's clearly inside of him, both in It Chapter 1 and It Chapter 2. But in this case, where with Henry, you fed on like the evil and hatred in him, whereas in Ingrid, you feed on her love and you twisted it and contorted it into something, desperate. She was so desperate for her father's love and to have her father back, and you took advantage of that. And he let her live because she was the perfect puppet of like, oh, she makes this even easier for me. Like, and I think her doing stuff like that spreads even more darkness and chaos, and that kind of helps add even more to the fear. So it's like you are my avatar, just like Henry will eventually become his avatar in that capacity. You become my weapon, my instrument. We also find out that she's the one that was creeping around. Like the photo they took in episode 3, that was her. The one that was outside of Will's house, that was her. She's been doing that because I don't know, like I think to just terrify the kids, but to follow them, to kind of terrify them. I think to kind of like she's trying to like raise their fear levels, because I think she thinks if I do this, eventually he'll pop up. And now she's so excited. She's like, oh my God, you're the one that brought my father out. Like, Lily, you're the one. You're the one. And now it's like, wow, like I love how demented this character is. And then the moment Lily's like, please don't hurt me, she's like, I would never hurt you. And then she's like, what about my friends? I was like, fuck me. Obviously Lily knows where Hank is. I was like, is she about to be the one to pop this all off? And lo and behold, it is, because Bowers later on says like, oh yeah, some lady gave us some anonymous tip about where they were. I was like, fuck me. Because she's trying to offer all these people up to Pennywise, because she thinks like the more sacrifices, the more horrible the thing is, the more. I mean, and it all makes so much sense too. Remember in 35, she's the one that told Lily about like, she's like, I don't really remember the incident in 35, but it's like she probably played a major role in instigating that and kind of like teeing it up for Pennywise to kind of like rage and like kind of create that bloody massacre, that big thing before the like I said, the end of the cycle. And it's like here she is kind of potentially repeating history. Maybe I'm wrong, but it feels like we're kind of inside. And like I said, the first, and especially considering she's the one that like brought that up, the 35 incident to Lily, just feels like that's supposed to be like she was kind of a lot more directly involved than we kind of think. I mean, it almost brings into question, was her relationship with Hank even real? Was this her just like playing the long game? I mean, we saw Pennywise is a fan of playing the long game too. I mean, once again, the Maddie of it all, staying in that form for that long. Like, we never see Pennywise do that. He always, I don't know if he does that in the books or in the, I keep always pluralize it, the book. I don't know if he does that in the book or not, but like in the movie and stuff like that, obviously maybe for time strain, but he's only ever like one form for a little bit of time. He's always bouncing between different forms. He's never like this form, like he'll turn into this form multiple times, but it'd be throughout the span of the story. Never like, oh, I'm this form, in this case, like the form of Maddie for a very long period of time, you know? It's just like, man, this is going to be extremely sad. The once again, I was listening to a podcast fairly recently, and someone was referencing the black spot situation. Apparently, that is something like the circumstances around it are different, but the black spot situation being kind of like this very bad thing that goes down is something from the It book. It's just the circumstances around it are different, but apparently Dick Halloran was involved, but like probably not to the major degree he's going to be in this particular series, but he's kind of referenced because this is connected to like some of those smaller stories, you know, in Derry's history that are apparently like sprinkled throughout the It book. Once again, you're coming. This is all coming from someone who's hearing all this information second and third, well, specifically secondhand, because I've never read the book, and I'm just hearing from people like who've read the book and are more familiar with the source material and whatnot. You know, I mean, especially because they make such a point to let you live in that like black spot and just see like the happiness and just kind of like, hey, this is kind of their home away from home and their place just to be free and okay. I mean, hell, Rich and Marge getting those freaking, what was it Airman Cokes or whatever, and you're just like, man, first those kids get high last episode, and now we're getting them a little tipsy. I was like, what the? I was like, why is that guy? It's like, well, I guess it's the '60s, and like, hey, cut loose a little bit. It's like, I'll give you a little bit of alcohol. It's not that big of a deal. So then also Rich on the drums, that was a whole dope thing, and he kind of got to show off in front of Marge. And actually, it's actually kind of adorable seeing the kid who plays Rich doing that. I was like, oh, there's actually something really dope about that. But you're just got that sinking feeling. You're like, oh, when the hell is it going to pop off? When is everything going to go wrong? Especially because, well, because Lily learned what Marge was going to, not Marge, sorry, what, what's her face has planned. So cut her hands ends up taking off. And the last shot, one of the last shots we see is her putting on the clown outfit. Because I guess she almost wants to be presentable when her quote unquote dad shows up potentially. Um, but yeah, Lily's probably on her way there to warn them, but like obviously she's going to get there too late because by the end of the episode, Bowers, as long as his entire crew all got masks on, because in the book, based on what I've heard, essentially it's not just like a well, it's it's not to the extreme that it is in the book, but in the book, the people who burned down the black spot is basically the a Derry chapter of the KKK. Whereas this is like it's just some angry racist white folk, without going full KKK, but we're tiptoeing there. It's almost kind of like it doesn't really matter the semantics of it in this moment. There is a distinction, but in this moment, that distinction doesn't matter between the book and what they're representing in this adaptation. Because it's still kind of like the same result is going to be like there's going to be a lot of people that die. It's going to be rough and. Because I was confused about the hollering of it all. Because I was like, is he actually here, or is he somewhere else, kind of having a vision of this? But it seemed like he was here, I believe. But yeah, once again, all the kids are here with the exception of Lily, who's trying to make her way here before stuff pops up. But it's like, yeah, my thought last episode, I was like, Hank gonna get hung. Like I was like, they're gonna lynch Hank, and I think they will. I think some people will burn. I think there are going to be some people who survive. We'll see how many, but I think Hank, like, I could definitely see them like hanging him and like making his death extremely brutal. And I'm so worried. It's going to be interesting to see where. No, it's fucked up to even have to say the word interesting, but we'll see where things take us next episode. Next episode would be like the penultimate of the season. I believe the season's only 8 episodes, so it's going to be some sad shit and some effed up stuff next episode, I'm sure. So, question is just how it all plays out and what does that set up for the season finale. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.